Close your eyes and let me take you somewhere you've never been before. Somewhere that existed only in the small hours of the night, when the rest of the world surrendered to sleep. It's 1899, and we're standing outside a strange wooden laboratory in Colorado Springs. The building looks innocent enough in daylight, just another frontier structure against the backdrop of Pikes Peak. But now, as midnight approaches, something extraordinary is about to happen. Inside, a tall, thin man with intense eyes is just beginning his workday. While everyone else in town has been asleep for hours, Nikola Tesla is brewing his morning coffee. His day starts when yours ends. His laboratory comes alive when the world goes quiet. You see, Tesla discovered something that would change everything. Electricity behaves differently at night. The air is calmer, the atmospheric interference is minimal, and the Earth itself becomes a better conductor. Night is when his impossible dreams had the best chance of becoming reality. Tonight, we'll follow him into that laboratory, where copper coils tower like metallic trees and sparks dance across the ceiling like captured lightning. We'll witness experiments that seemed so impossible, his neighbors thought he was summoning spirits. We'll drift alongside the mind that dreamed of a world where energy flowed as freely as air, where distance meant nothing, and where the Earth itself became humanity's greatest machine. Are you ready to step into Tesla's midnight world? Ready to discover how a man who barely slept spent his wakeful hours dreaming of tomorrow? Then settle in, let your breathing slow, and join me in a laboratory where the impossible happened every night after the world went to sleep. Imagine Tesla in his element. And I don't mean the wild-haired caricature from popular imagination, but the real man. Tall and lean, with hands that moved like a pianist's when he spoke about his inventions. He wore formal suits even in his laboratory, as if electricity deserved the same respect you'd give to high society. Tesla's relationship with sleep was, to put it mildly, complicated. Most people need 8 hours of rest. Tesla convinced himself he needed 2. He would catnap at his desk, fully clothed, then wake with a solution to a problem that had puzzled him for weeks. His assistants learned to recognize the signs. Tesla would stare into space for minutes at a time, his mind constructing and testing entire machines that existed only in his imagination. He called this his mental laboratory. While other inventors built prototype after prototype, Tesla would design, test, and perfect his inventions entirely in his head. He could visualize a motor so clearly that he could run it for weeks in his mind, then disassemble it to check for wear. His brain was the most sophisticated engineering software ever created, running simulations that wouldn't be matched by computers for another century. The Colorado Springs Laboratory was Tesla's attempt to build a physical space worthy of his mental one. The main experimental hall was 60 feet by 60 feet, with a ceiling that soared 30 feet high. Copper wires ran everywhere like the nervous system of some great sleeping giant. In the center sat his masterpiece, a massive coil that could generate electrical voltages higher than lightning bolts. Tesla's assistants had learned to work in careful silence. He was so absorbed in his experiments that loud noises could break his concentration and ruin hours of delicate calibration. They moved through the laboratory like ghosts, adjusting equipment, taking measurements, preparing for the nightly tests that would push the boundaries of what electricity could do. As darkness fell over Colorado Springs, Tesla would begin his ritual. First, he'd calculate the optimal atmospheric conditions using barometric readings, humidity levels, and his own intuitive sense of how the air felt. Then he'd power up his equipment gradually, like a conductor bringing an orchestra to life one instrument at a time. The coil would begin to hum, a deep, resonant tone that seemed to emerge from the earth itself. As Tesla increased the power, the hum would rise in pitch and intensity until it became something you felt in your bones rather than heard with your ears. The air in the laboratory would begin to smell of ozone, that sharp, clean scent that follows lightning strikes. And then the magic would begin. Sparks would arc between the copper spheres at the top of Tesla's coil, controlled rivers of electrical fire that danced to Tesla's command. He could make them twist and spiral, reach across impossible distances, even form perfect geometric patterns in the air. But Tesla wasn't putting on a show. Every spark, every arc, every electrical phenomenon he created was part of a larger experiment. He was trying to prove something that the scientific establishment considered impossible, that electrical energy could be transmitted through the Earth itself, without wires, without cables, without any physical connection at all. Imagine trying to explain Wi-Fi to someone from 1899. Tesla was essentially proposing the same thing, but for power instead of information. He believed the Earth was like a giant battery, and if you knew the right frequency, the planet's electrical heartbeat, you could tap into that energy from anywhere. His neighbours in Colorado Springs had mixed feelings about living next to Tesla's midnight experiments. On quiet nights, the electrical fields from his laboratory were so intense that people could hold gas-filled tubes in their hands and watch them glow without any wires. Children discovered they could walk near the laboratory and create sparks by touching metal objects. Some residents complained that Tesla's experiments were interfering with their sleep. The electrical activity seemed to charge the very air, creating an energy that made relaxation difficult. Tesla, of course, was too fascinated to sleep anyway. He would spend entire nights adjusting his equipment by tiny increments, searching for the precise frequency that would unlock the Earth's electrical secrets. His notebooks from this period read like the journal of an explorer mapping unknown territory. Increased secondary turns to 689, he would write. Earth resonance detected at 11.78 cycles per second. Must investigate further. What Tesla was actually doing, though he didn't fully understand it at the time, was discovering radio waves. His massive coil wasn't just generating electricity, it was broadcasting it. Those late-night experiments were some of humanity's first steps into the invisible spectrum of electromagnetic radiation that now carries our phone calls, our internet, our GPS signals. But Tesla wasn't thinking about communication. He was thinking about power. He dreamed of a world where electricity flowed as freely as sunlight, where anyone could tap into the Earth's electrical field and power their lights, their motors, their entire civilization, without burning coal or oil or building massive power plants. It was a beautiful dream, an impossible dream. A dream that would consume the next 20 years of his life and drive him to the edge of financial ruin. But on those magical Colorado nights, surrounded by dancing sparks and humming coils, with the Rocky Mountains standing guard in the darkness, Tesla's impossible dream felt within reach. The Earth itself seemed to be responding to his experiments, resonating with frequencies that had never been heard before. And in the quiet moments between experiments, when the coils were silent and the laboratory filled with the peaceful darkness of the high plains, Tesla would plan his next impossible project. A tower that would make his Colorado experiments look like toys. A tower that would prove once and for all that distance was just an illusion, and that energy could flow around the world as easily as it flowed through the copper wires of his laboratory. He called it Wardenclyffe, and it would be either his greatest triumph or his most spectacular failure. Let me tell you about the tower that broke Tesla's heart. It's 1901, and Tesla walks into the office of J.P. Morgan, one of the most powerful men in America. Tesla needs money, a lot of money, and he's about to make the classic mistake of telling a businessman exactly what he plans to do with it. "I want to build a tower," Tesla explains, spreading blueprints across Morgan's mahogany desk, for wireless communication across the Atlantic. Morgan leans back in his leather chair. Wireless telegraphy sounds profitable. Marconi is already making headlines with his radio experiments. Morgan writes a check for $150,000, roughly $5 million in today's money. What Tesla doesn't mention is that he's planning to use Morgan's investment to give away free electricity to the entire world. If you've ever asked your parents for money to buy school supplies and spent it on video games instead, you understand Tesla's situation. Except instead of disappointing your family, he was about to disappoint one of the most ruthless financiers in American history. The Wardenclyffe Tower began rising from the Long Island soil like something from a fever dream. Picture a mushroom designed by someone who had never seen a mushroom, but had it described by someone who was very excited about mushrooms. The structure stood 187 feet tall, topped with a copper dome that gleamed in the sunlight like a metallic moon. But the real magic was happening underground. Tesla's workers dug a shaft 120 feet deep beneath the tower, lined it with steel, and filled it with carefully arranged metal plates. The foundation served as a massive electrical ground that Tesla believed would allow him to literally plug into the planet. Tesla's theory was elegantly simple and completely insane. The Earth, he reasoned, was essentially a giant conductor surrounded by an electrically charged atmosphere. If you could create the right kind of electrical disturbance at just the right frequency, it would resonate through the entire planet like a bell. Every point on Earth would become electrically connected to every other point. Imagine dropping a stone into a perfectly still pond. The ripples spread outward in perfect circles, carrying the energy of that initial splash to every shore. Tesla believed electricity could behave the same way, using the Earth itself as the pond. His calculations suggested that the Earth had a fundamental resonance frequency around 8 Hz. Modern science has confirmed that Tesla was remarkably close. The Schumann resonance occurs at 7.83 Hz. Tesla's intuition about planetary electricity was so accurate, it's almost supernatural. Meanwhile, Tesla's assistants were beginning to worry. Their boss had been working 18-hour days, surviving on catnaps and an alarming amount of coffee. He would arrive at Wardenclyffe each evening as the sun set and work until dawn, fine-tuning his equipment, running calculations, adjusting resonance frequencies by fractions of a hertz. The first major test came on a clear night in 1903. Tesla had spent weeks preparing, calibrating every component, checking every connection. As darkness fell, he began powering up the tower gradually, watching meters and gauges that measured electrical phenomena most people couldn't even pronounce. The effect was immediate and spectacular. The copper dome began to glow with a pale blue light, like a captive aurora. Sparks danced around the edges of the tower, creating patterns that looked almost alive. The air around Wardenclyffe became so charged with electricity that people walking nearby could light gas-filled tubes simply by holding them overhead. Local residents had interesting reactions to living near Tesla's electrical circus. Some reported that their metal objects would spark when touched. Others claimed they could power small lights by sticking wires into the ground. Children discovered that walking near the tower made their hair stand on end, which they found delightful until their parents found out. Tesla was ecstatic. His instruments detected electrical currents flowing through the Earth itself, radiating outward from his tower in all directions. He had successfully turned the planet into a giant electrical circuit, with Wardenclyffe as the power source. In his mind, he could already see a world transformed. Electric vehicles could drive anywhere without stopping to recharge. They would draw power continuously from the ground beneath their wheels. Ships could navigate using wireless power beamed from shore. Even aircraft could fly indefinitely, drawing energy from Tesla's global grid. But there was a small problem that Tesla, in his electrical enthusiasm, had overlooked. A problem that would ultimately doom his beautiful dream. Back in New York, J.P. Morgan was reading newspaper reports about Tesla's experiments with growing concern. The tower was supposed to be for wireless telegraphy. Instead, Tesla seemed to be building some kind of planetary power station that would give away electricity for free. Morgan was a businessman. He owned power plants, electrical cables, the infrastructure that brought electricity to America's cities. Tesla was proposing to make all of that obsolete overnight, replacing it with a system that anyone could access simply by sticking a wire in the ground. Think about it from Morgan's perspective. It would be like inventing a machine that could generate unlimited free food and trying to sell the idea to someone who owned every restaurant in the city. The confrontation, when it came, was swift and brutal. In 1906, Morgan cut off funding for Wardenclyffe, leaving Tesla with a half-finished tower and crushing debt. Tesla spent years trying to find other investors, but the conversation always went the same way. So, Mr. Tesla, how exactly would we charge people for this free energy? Well, you see, that's the beauty of it. Next. The Wardenclyffe Tower stood for another 11 years, a monument to impossible dreams and economic reality. In 1917, it was demolished and sold for scrap to pay Tesla's debts. The copper dome that was supposed to light the world ended up in a junkyard, melted down for more mundane purposes. Tesla never got over it. Decades later, when asked about his greatest regret, he would speak of Wardenclyffe with the pain of someone describing a lost love. The technology was sound, he insisted. The mathematics were correct. Humanity just wasn't ready for a world where energy belonged to everyone. Here's the thing that would keep Tesla awake at night for the rest of his life. He was probably right. Modern technology has proven Tesla remarkably prescient. We do have wireless power transmission. Your phone charges wirelessly. Electric cars are everywhere. The internet carries information around the globe instantly, using principles Tesla helped discover. We've achieved his vision of wireless communication so completely that we take it for granted. Every Wi-Fi signal, every cellular call, every satellite transmission uses electromagnetic principles that Tesla was exploring at Wardenclyffe. The wireless power, we're still working on that part. Maybe it's for the best, a world where unlimited free energy flows to anyone who knows how to tap into it. Sounds wonderful, until you remember that humans have historically found creative ways to weaponize even the most peaceful technologies. Which brings us to Tesla's second impossible dream, the one that governments actually wanted to fund, the one that promised to end wars by making them too terrible to fight, the one Tesla thought of as his peace ray, though the rest of the world knew it by a more ominous name. Every mad scientist in every movie you've ever seen owes a debt to Tesla's most terrifying invention. The weapon that could supposedly destroy aircraft at 250 miles, topple armies, and end human conflict forever through the simple expedient of making conflict unsurvivable. Tesla called it his Teleforce projector. The press, with their gift for dramatic headlines, called it the Death Ray. Now let's drift forward through the decades to find Tesla in his 70s, still working through the night in his New York hotel room. By the 1930s, he had traded his grand laboratory for a small suite at the Hotel New Yorker, but his mind was as restless as ever. The wireless power dream had failed, leaving him financially ruined but intellectually undiminished. If the world wouldn't accept his gifts of free energy, perhaps it would be more interested in his gifts of spectacular destruction. The thing about Tesla's death ray, it wasn't born from malice. Tesla genuinely believed that creating the ultimate weapon would eliminate war entirely. His logic was impeccable, if slightly insane. If every nation possessed a weapon capable of destroying any approaching army or air force, then no nation would dare attack another. Peace, through superior firepower, taken to its absolute extreme. Tesla's midnight work sessions during this period took on an almost feverish quality. He filled notebook after notebook with calculations, diagrams of particle acceleration chambers, designs for electrical systems that could generate voltages powerful enough to strip electrons from atoms, and velocities that would make bullets look like slow-moving soap bubbles. The physics were surprisingly sound. Tesla understood particle acceleration decades before the invention of modern particle accelerators. Tesla claimed he had solved the engineering challenges. In 1934, he announced that his teleforce projector was complete, at least in theory. The weapon existed fully formed in his mental laboratory, tested and perfected across thousands of imaginary battles. All he needed was funding to build a working prototype. Suddenly, governments around the world became very interested in Tesla's nocturnal activities. What happened next reads like a spy novel written by someone who had drunk too much coffee. The Soviet Union sent representatives to Tesla's hotel room. The British military dispatched scientists to evaluate his claims. Even the US government, which had largely ignored Tesla's wireless power experiments, began paying attention to his talk of death rays and particle beams. Tesla played these nations against each other with the skill of a seasoned diplomat. He would meet with Soviet officials in the morning, British representatives in the afternoon, and American military personnel in the evening. Each group believed they were on the verge of acquiring the ultimate weapon. Each group was convinced that their rivals were about to gain a decisive military advantage. The hotel room conferences became the stuff of legend. Government officials would arrive expecting to meet a conventional weapons inventor, and instead encounter a tall, thin man who spoke of electrical potentials with the passion of a poet describing love. Tesla would explain his theories using dinner plates as diagrams, salt shakers as electrons, and his coffee cup as the target being destroyed. The demonstrations were purely theoretical. Tesla had no working death ray to show his visitors, just mathematical calculations written in his careful handwriting, electrical diagrams that looked like abstract art, and confident assertions that his weapon could do everything he claimed. Some officials were understandably skeptical. How could an elderly inventor working alone in a hotel room have developed a weapon that entire government laboratories had failed to create? Tesla's response was characteristically bold. He had been thinking about these problems longer than their laboratories had existed. His mental experiments had given him decades of experience that no physical testing could match. Others were intrigued enough to offer funding. The Soviet Union reportedly agreed to pay Tesla $25,000 for preliminary information about his weapon, a substantial sum for a man who had been living in genteel poverty. Tesla accepted their money and provided them with documents that were, according to later analysis, scientifically sophisticated but practically useless. Tesla was playing a deeper game than anyone realized. He genuinely believed his weapon was possible, but he also understood that actually building it would require resources no single inventor could command. His strategy was to generate enough international interest to fund proper research, then use that research to prove his theories correct. The death ray became Tesla's final obsession. He would work on his calculations late into the night, perfecting designs for components that existed only on paper. His notebooks from this period show increasingly complex diagrams that push the boundaries of 1930s technology. Tesla died in 1943, taking the complete plans for his teleforce projector with him. Government officials who searched his hotel room found thousands of pages of notes, but nothing that constituted a complete blueprint for the weapon he had promised. Modern analysis reveals a fascinating mixture of genuine insight and impossible ambition. Tesla's understanding of particle acceleration was decades ahead of his time. Many of his principles are used in today's particle accelerators and plasma weapons research. His proposed power supply systems, however, would have required technologies that didn't exist until the development of modern electronics. Tesla had essentially designed a weapon that required components from the 21st century to be built in the 20th. Perhaps it was for the best. Tesla's vision of peace through ultimate weaponry assumed that rational nations would choose mutual survival over mutual destruction. History suggests that humans are remarkably creative at finding ways to use even the most terrible weapons, regardless of the consequences. The death ray joined wireless power in Tesla's collection of beautiful impossibilities, ideas that were ahead of their time, technologies that required a more advanced civilization to build, dreams that were too large for the world that dreamed them. But Tesla's final impossible dream was different. It didn't require advanced technology or enormous funding. It required only the ability to listen to something that had been speaking since the beginning of time, something that filled the universe with signals waiting to be decoded. It required hearing the secret song that the Earth itself was singing. Let me tell you about the night Tesla discovered that the universe was trying to talk to him. It was 1899, during those magical Colorado Springs months. Tesla had been working on his wireless power transmission, fine-tuning his massive coil, when something unexpected began appearing on his instruments. Signals, rhythmic, repeating electrical pulses that seemed to come from nowhere. Tesla stared at his gauges in confusion. This wasn't supposed to be happening. His equipment was designed to generate electricity, not receive mysterious signals from where exactly? At first, he assumed the signals were interference from his own equipment. Electrical devices have a tendency to talk to each other in ways their inventors never intended, like having a conversation in a crowded restaurant where you keep hearing fragments of other people's discussions. But as Tesla investigated further, shutting down his transmitters one by one, the mysterious signals continued. They were coming from somewhere else entirely. Tesla began staying up even later than usual, which was saying something. Past midnight, past dawn, tracking these phantom signals across his instruments. The patterns were too regular to be random electrical noise, too consistent to be atmospheric disturbance. Someone, or something, was broadcasting into the night, using frequencies Tesla had never encountered before. His notebooks from this period read like the journal of an electrical detective. Signal strength increases at 2:17 a.m., he would write. Pattern repeats every 22 minutes, 18 seconds. Source unknown. Tesla had stumbled onto something that wouldn't be officially discovered until decades later. Natural radio emissions from space. Here's what Tesla didn't know. The universe is incredibly noisy. Stars generate radio waves as they burn. Galaxies broadcast electromagnetic signals as matter spirals into their black holes. Jupiter creates radio bursts when its massive magnetic field interacts with charged particles from the Sun. The cosmos is filled with electrical chatter, a constant background conversation between celestial objects that had been going on for billions of years before humans existed. Tesla was hearing this cosmic orchestra for the first time. His sensitive equipment was picking up radio waves from sources millions of miles away. The rhythmic patterns he detected were likely emissions from Jupiter, whose radio signals are so strong they can interfere with modern electronic equipment. But Tesla didn't know about Jupiter's radio emissions. His first thought, the one that would obsess him for the rest of his life, was that he was receiving signals from another world. From Mars. Now, this was 1899, remember? The idea of life on Mars wasn't science fiction. It was serious scientific speculation. Giovanni Schiaparelli had observed linear features on the Martian surface that he called canali, Italian for channels. When translated into English, canali became canals, implying artificial construction. Percival Lowell had built an entire observatory dedicated to studying what he believed were irrigation systems built by a dying Martian civilization. Tesla's reasoning was logical, if spectacularly wrong. He was receiving artificial signals from space. Mars was the most likely source of artificial signals. Therefore, he was receiving communications from Martians. The conclusion seemed inescapable. Tesla began developing equipment specifically designed to listen for interplanetary messages. He created increasingly sensitive receivers, antennas tuned to frequencies that might carry communications across the vast distances between planets. His laboratory became humanity's first attempt at listening for extraterrestrial intelligence. The signals Tesla detected came in patterns that seemed almost linguistic. Short bursts followed by longer ones, sequences that repeated with variations, rhythmic pulses that suggested meaning. Tesla became convinced that he was witnessing the first contact between Earth and another world. He began experimenting with transmission as well as reception. If Martians were trying to communicate with Earth, Tesla reasoned, perhaps they would appreciate a response. He began broadcasting simple mathematical sequences, prime numbers, geometric progressions, basic arithmetic, hoping that any intelligent civilization would recognize these as signs of intelligence rather than natural phenomena. Tesla's attempts at interplanetary communication were conducted in absolute secrecy. He understood that most people would consider his Mars theories evidence of mental instability, but he also believed he was on the verge of the most important discovery in human history. The signals continued for months. Tesla filled notebook after notebook with precise recordings of their timing, frequency, and intensity. He developed increasingly elaborate theories about Martian technology, Martian society, even Martian attempts to establish regular communication schedules with Earth. Tesla's Mars obsession reached its peak in 1901 when he published an article titled "Talking with the Planets." In it, he claimed that his Colorado Springs experiments had achieved humanity's first interplanetary communication. The signals he had detected showed clear evidence of intelligent control. They were too regular, too purposeful to be natural phenomena. The scientific community's response was predictably skeptical. Tesla's reputation for electrical genius was unquestioned, but his claims about Martian communications pushed the boundaries of credibility. Without Tesla's sensitive equipment, other scientists couldn't verify his observations. Tesla didn't help his cause by becoming increasingly secretive about his methods. He refused to provide detailed technical specifications for his receivers, claiming that the technology was too valuable to share freely. This secrecy, intended to protect his discoveries, instead made them appear suspicious. Tesla had discovered the beginning of radio astronomy. His sensitive receivers were detecting natural electromagnetic radiation from space, the radio whispers of distant stars, the electromagnetic storms of gas giant planets, the background radiation left over from the Big Bang itself. Tesla was humanity's first radio astronomer, though he didn't realize it. The rhythmic patterns Tesla interpreted as Martian messages were likely signals from Jupiter, whose massive magnetic field generates radio emissions with clockwork regularity. The planet broadcasts on frequencies that Tesla's equipment could detect, creating patterns that do indeed seem artificial to anyone unfamiliar with planetary magnetism. Tesla's mistake was understandable. The idea that planets could generate their own radio signals wouldn't be accepted until the 1950s. When Tesla detected artificial-seeming signals from space, extraterrestrial intelligence was a more reasonable explanation than natural cosmic radio emissions. Modern CT researchers, scientists who search for extraterrestrial intelligence, consider Tesla a pioneer in their field. His methods were sophisticated, his equipment was sensitive, and his dedication was absolute. The fact that he was detecting natural rather than artificial signals doesn't diminish the importance of his work. Tesla never abandoned his belief that he had made contact with Mars. Even in his final years, living in modest hotel rooms in New York, he would speak with quiet confidence about his interplanetary communications. The signals had been real, he insisted. The patterns had been too regular to be natural. Somewhere among the stars, an intelligence had tried to speak to Earth, and Tesla had been the only human listening. Perhaps Tesla's greatest tragedy was that he lived decades before science caught up with his discoveries. The cosmic radio signals he detected in 1899 wouldn't be properly understood until the space age. The equipment he built to listen for extraterrestrial intelligence wouldn't be matched until the construction of modern radio telescopes. Tesla had been the first human to hear the universe's electromagnetic voice. He had detected signals from across the solar system using equipment he built with his own hands. The fact that those signals came from planets rather than people doesn't make his achievement less remarkable. The universe had been singing its electromagnetic song since the beginning of time. Tesla was simply the first person to build instruments sensitive enough to hear the music. Follow me now into Tesla's twilight years, where we find him in a series of increasingly modest hotel rooms, each one transformed into a miniature laboratory where he continued his lifelong conversation with electricity. Gone were the towering coils and spectacular sparks of his youth, replaced by sensitive instruments that could detect the faintest electrical whispers. Tesla had become less interested in creating dramatic displays of power and more fascinated by the subtle ways that energy moved through the world. His routines became almost ritualistic. He would wake each afternoon as the sun began to set, spend hours in meticulous grooming, then begin his nocturnal work as New York City settled into sleep. He claimed that his best insights came during the quiet hours after midnight, when the electrical activity of the city diminished and his sensitive equipment could detect phenomena that would be drowned out during the day. Tesla would spend entire nights sitting quietly in his hotel room, surrounded by instruments that hummed almost inaudibly. He claimed he could feel changes in the electrical potential of the atmosphere, could sense approaching thunderstorms hours before they arrived, could detect the subtle electrical fields generated by the Earth's rotation. Whether Tesla actually possessed these sensitivities, or simply convinced himself that he did, is impossible to determine. What's certain is that he had developed an almost mystical relationship with the electrical phenomena he had spent his lifetime studying. Tesla spoke of electricity with the reverence that others reserve for religion. Tesla never lost his conviction that his most important discoveries lay just beyond his current understanding. He would speak with quiet confidence about breakthrough insights that seemed to hover at the edge of his consciousness, electrical principles that he could sense but not yet articulate. Tesla's last significant public statement was a promise. He claimed he was on the verge of his greatest discovery, an insight that would dwarf all of his previous inventions. This final breakthrough would unlock electricity's deepest secrets, would provide humanity with tools that seemed almost magical in their power and elegance. His hotel room was found filled with thousands of pages of notes, diagrams, and calculations, but nothing that clearly described the revolutionary discovery he had promised. Close your eyes now and imagine Tesla's ghost wandering through our modern world. What would he make of the wireless signals that fill every inch of space around us? Every Wi-Fi network, every cellular tower, every Bluetooth connection follows principles Tesla discovered during those midnight hours in Colorado Springs. Your phone charges wirelessly on your nightstand. Tesla's dream of wireless power, finally realized in miniature. The radio waves carrying your favorite songs travel through the air using frequencies Tesla first mapped over a century ago. His impossible dreams have become our everyday reality, so mundane that we hardly notice them. We live in Tesla's wireless world, surrounded by the invisible rivers of electromagnetic energy he spent his life trying to harness. Tesla never saw a computer, never held a smartphone, never browsed the internet. Yet every digital signal that flows through our connected world follows laws he helped discover. The electromagnetic spectrum he explored with crude equipment and brilliant intuition now carries the sum of human knowledge, streaming invisibly through the air around your bed as you drift off to sleep. Tonight As you close your eyes and let sleep carry you away from the waking world, remember that you're surrounded by invisible forces Tesla would recognize. The electromagnetic fields of your bedside clock, the radio waves from distant stations, the subtle electrical activity of your own nervous system, all part of the same cosmic dance that Tesla spent his midnight hours trying to understand. His impossible dreams became our possible world, and perhaps, in your dreams tonight, you'll hear what Tesla heard in those Colorado Springs nights, the universe itself humming with electrical possibilities, singing its ancient song of energy and connection, whispering its secrets to anyone willing to listen carefully in the quiet hours when the rest of the world has gone to sleep. Sweet dreams, and may your impossible dreams become tomorrow's reality.